I think we need to take back Jamaica and go back to some of our traditional values. Perhaps the Ministry of Education in particular should force feed integrity into the curriculum.
The Alric Show, inspiration, motivation, one vision, hope to one new generation. Together we can live and learn. Yes, we're one family on the Alric Show.
Hi, I'm Alric and welcome to the show. Today, we're talking about crime and violence in Jamaica, our island home. We're talking about integrity, trust, and transparency. Major Basil Jarrett is here with us. Welcome. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Right? I don't know if you remember.
I remember.
But I was your student. I was your student.
I remember.
In advertising.
Yes. When I was talking to your producer, I said, just let me check if I passed him, before I...
And I'm sure I learned a lot, sir, because I actually went into advertising too.
Good stuff.
So thank you, man.
No, you've done really well. Congratulations.
Thank you, man.
Congrats.
Thank you. And now today, we're having a different conversation, right? You are now part of the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency, MOCA. I got that right?
Yes,
All
you
right,
got it
cool.
right. Yeah.
Now, tell me about this agency and what can Jamaicans rely on knowing that we have MOCA?
Well, the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency, it's a mouthful. A lot of people still don't understand what the agency is all about, what's our mandate, that sort of thing. The best way to think about MOCA is we are Jamaica's FBI. That's the best way to conceptualize it. So we have very strong investigative, operational, prosecutorial talents that we bring to the agency to help, to help cap the impact that we're feeling from not just organized crime, but corruption and the effect it's having on the country.
Help me to understand organized crime. What does it look like in Jamaica?
Yeah. When most people hear organized crime, they think of the Sopranos, these shadowy organizations with the crime boss sitting down in a basement, smoking a cigar and organizing his crime empire. But really, organized crime is anything that involves 3 or more individuals planning, plotting to carry out their schemes. It involves different levels. You may have the top tier organizers, you have the guys who execute on the ground. Scamming, for example. Most people think of scamming as, one individual sitting down in a back room with his phone and just doing his business.
But that's not how it works.
No, it's much more organized than that. There is a...
How organized is that? Help me to understand the ins and the outs of that. I'm not going to do it, I'm not getting involved, but I want to understand what is it that your detectives are able to pick up on the ground. How deep is this?
Well, what we've come to discover about scamming is that it works at various levels. At the top level, you may have an individual who controls a number of scammers. The scammers being the foot soldiers who are out there working the phones.
Is that a kingpin?
The kingpin. He would be your scamming kingpin. And he may control a network
Are you a scampin?
Scampin. He is the boss of the operation, but beneath him you may have persons who actually work in the phones. You may have persons who are getting the lead sheets, getting the phone numbers. You have the couriers to move the money. You also have the enforcers. These are the guys who ensure that the system is protected from other scammers. It's really a network of criminals working.
It's a network, but I've heard a person say that don't think it's really the liquor man on a corner who are run this thing. Is high level. Is that true?
Absolutely, absolutely. In any form of highly organized and sophisticated activity, there's you usually find that the person who's in charge of the overall operation is far removed. Right? He's not the one making the calls and deceiving the individuals. He's a person who really just ensures that everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. And sometimes it's very difficult to find out who that person is because there are so many layers.
What are some of the surprises, probably not surprises for your detectives, to know the kind of people that are at the top of this, the top of scamming, who's keeping everything organized?
They're very smart. When you look at how these operations are run, you realize that you're not dealing with low-level thinkers. For example, scamming has it sort of developed a reputation for being, someone call you and told you that, tells you that you won $1 million in a lottery that you obviously didn't enter. Right. And so you're thinking, okay, well, nobody's going to catch me out like that. But scamming has evolved to the point that somebody will call someone in the States and say, for example, hey, I'm calling from the IRS, and we know that you owe the government X amount of dollars. Let's say you owe the government $150,000 in taxes. We want to settle with you, and one of my colleagues is going to call you and arrange a payment. Tomorrow you get another call from somebody else. Say, hey, you spoke to my colleague yesterday. We see where you owe $150, but we're going to ask you to pay $50 because we really just want to expedite the process. And then you get a follow-up email. So you realize that you're being bombarded by a very sophisticated scam that at the end of the day, you think you're dealing business with a legitimate person, only to realize that, you've been the latest victim of an evolved form of scamming. And sometimes what they'll even do is they take a victim and say, hey, I know you were scammed $50,000, but if you work with us, we can help you to get it back. And so the victims become scammers. It's a very fascinating business, and that's some of the things we're picking up on the ground.
We'll take a break. When we come back, we continue our conversation with Major Basil Jarrett from MOCA. We talk more about corruption in Jamaica, crime and violence as well. We soon come back. Welcome back to the show. We're talking with Major Basil Jarrett from MOCA, and we're exploring scamming in Jamaica. Now, how is MOCA trying to literally stop scamming in Jamaica? I don't know if stop is I don't know if I'm using the word stop right now, but at least to reduce.
Yes, to reduce. So MOCA has a very strong partnerships with other law enforcement entities. You're absolutely right. Scamming is such big business. I don't think there's one entity, one agency in Jamaica that can say, hey, by myself, I'm going to put a halt to this thing. So we work very closely with the Anti-Lottery Scamming Task Force. We work closely with the JCF. We work closely with the FID. It's a very strong partnership with all the other law enforcement agencies because scamming is so broad that it touches on almost every aspect of criminality. There's a little bit of money laundering, there's some gun smuggling, there might be some drugs involved. Obviously, there's deceit, deception, that sort of thing. So there's a number of agencies working together to partner with to help break the back of lottery scamming.
You believe we're having success so far?
I think so. I think so. If you look at some of the arrests that we're making, we are, but the conversation might shift now into a bigger question. Well, why are young people so attracted to this lifestyle and this, this employment, this type of employment? In one sense, it's easy money. Well, if you consider sitting on the phone and working the numbers all day, in one sense, it's easy money. But I think it also reflects a general breakdown that we're seeing in the population for traditional work values. So. Another aspect of what we do at MOCA is that we try to educate young people, not just to steer them away from scamming, but to also to encourage them to live good, purposeful lives.
So you're actually in the communities as well?
We do a lot of community outreach projects where we encourage persons to say no to corruption, to live your life with integrity, to do the right thing message. But it's difficult. It is difficult. We see the breakdown of society, the breakdown of law and order. It's difficult. It's difficult. But we are doing our part by ensuring that we're delivering that message in addition to investigating and prosecuting.
A lot of us, Major Jarrett, we might think that some people in Jamaica, they're untouchable. And we are wondering, places like MOCA, you know, the security force overall, do you actually pay attention to the people who believe that they're untouchable? And as others might think, it's the little man that always end up behind bars or anything like that.
You know, when people say that, I always ask about the question, what are you doing to help us? If you know of the big man, the kingpin, what are you doing to help us to catch him?
People fear for them, fear for their lives.
I can understand that, but there are also anonymous channels that people can use to report what they're seeing happening around them. For example, last December, we at MOCA, we signed an agreement with Crime Stop, where we set up an anti-corruption organized crime tip line that is manned by Crime Stop. And very importantly, Crime Stop has never had a source compromise in there over 30 years. When you call Crime Stop, you should feel a measure of confidence that it won't come back to your doorstep, because this never happened before. So we chose Crime Stop as our partner to create that anti-corruption tip line to help encourage people to say, look, be a part of the solution. I mean, we're all seeing the problems. We know the impact crime and corruption is having on the country, but if you see something, say something. Tell it to Crime Stop, they'll tell it to us, and we'll, you know, if the information is good enough, we should be able to action it.
You've been a part of the JDF for years back, right? What is that experience like, and how do you see the JDF supporting the police force in stemming crime and violence on the island?
Well, personally, for me, the JDF was like a dream come true, you know. From I was this tall or small, I wanted to be a soldier. Yeah. You understand? So when
So while you were teaching me at school, you were a soldier?
No, I wasn't.
Yeah?
It's a funny story. So when I was growing up, and I was in high school, I went to Jamaica College, big up True Blue. I had joined the cadet force there and wanted to be a soldier, but I think my father had other ideas. He wanted me to become a lawyer, a doctor, or something like that. So, you know, most young kids want to impress their fathers. But as I grew up, I realized that medicine wasn't my thing. Medicine wasn't my thing. And eventually, I think I found my calling in the arts, the humanities, communications, as a big history buff, that sort of thing. So I kind of went down that path when medicine dropped me. Oh. Right? I ended up going to UA intending to do law. But then I found history and I found communications, and I thought, you know, this is really where I wanted to be. So that's why I really ended up in academia. Right. And then one day I just got a call. A friend of mine said, hey, the JDF is looking to revamp its communications portfolio, and we think you might be a good fit for it. So for me, the JDF was, you know, a realization of a dream come true. And that's why I can say in my 12 years, it was the best job. Sometimes I'd wonder, will people pay me for this? Right? And I immersed myself in the military. Normally in communications, people, you know, you stay back at the office and you communicate on behalf of the force. No, that's not.
You got involved.
No, I got involved. I want to be there, boots on the ground. I want to jump out of the truck at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, so I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. But because of where I was positioned, I got to appreciate the role that the JDF plays as part of a broader network of law enforcement. So absolutely, we bring intelligence support to the police. We brought boots on the ground, operational support, manpower, logistics, that sort of thing. So even now at MOCA, when we are planning our operations, we know that if there's a capability we don't have, we can pull on the JDF, and pull on the JCF, you know. And I still have my people there. I said, hey, you know, when I need some support on the ground, no, anything, Major, doesn't know.
You know, I think a lot of people they have to view that JDF really don't have nothing to do, unless it's some big thing, some curfew, stuff like that. But you're shedding a brighter light. Oh,
you see, I think that's a result of how we used to do things. Before I joined the JDF, there was sort of an approach where, you know what, we go out, we do our business, and we come behind the walls at Up Park Camp, and we don't go out until we do something again. So I tried to change that. I made the I think I made the JDF a little bit more transparent and accessible. Right. People started to realize, no, we don't just sit down in camp and play dominoes all day. Sometimes we play cards.
Right, but on a serious note, right?
On a serious note, we don't just sit down in camp all day. We're out there, we're patrolling the streets, we're assisting the police. In fact, the vast majority of people who don't know what the JDF does, that's mainly because we're not in their communities. If you go into certain communities, also, the soldiers are here every day, trust me. But as we've evolved, as crimes like scamming and other problems pop up, you find that the JDF is now involved in all sort of other things. Non-traditional things, one might say. And so we are literally out there a lot more now.
We take a break. When we come back, we talk to Major Jarrett about crime and violence on the island and what MOCA is doing to help to stem that. Welcome back to the show. We now talk about corruption and its link with crime and violence on the island. Corruption, where is it at? Is that the top, the middle, or the bottom? Or what's the flow?
Well, the best way to answer that question is to look at the Corruption Perception Index, which comes out every year and sort of ranks countries and tells you how well they're doing with corruption. And Jamaica dominates. We're right up there with some of the most corrupt countries in the Caribbean. Now, sometimes people have a difficulty understanding what corruption is, right? So you hear corruption, you think some high-level politician is getting contracts and that sort of thing, but it's much more complicated than that. Corruption it's dishonesty. It's when you try to bribe a police officer, or a police officer tries to sell you.
Tax you.
Right, tax you, right. It's when you go to the motor vehicle depot and you try to pay for certain services. It's when you try to go around the corner and bypass certain things. It's when somebody tries to charge you to do what they're paid to do on a daily basis. So corruption is very broad. It's dishonesty, unethical conduct, nepotism, people getting jobs that they're not qualified for. When you start to see corruption in that light, you realize how big a problem that we have. So from that point of view, the next question obviously, well, how big a problem is this? And I've seen estimates where corruption robs the country of about 5 to 10% of its GDP. If you think about what that money could do for education, health, infrastructure, that sort of thing, it's a very big problem. Unfortunately, though, I think we've become too comfortable with corruption. It's a shoddy thing set. It's a shoddy system set up.
We forgot you, man of eat a food.
Man of eat a food, and government does right. But we don't realize, at the end of the day, what we're really doing is robbing the country.
How does MOCA pick this up on its radar when there's corruption, probably at the high level or the mid-tier? How do you pick that up on the radar? Or do you know something's happening in a let's say, a government ministry,
right?
Which has happened over the past, right? How do you pick up on that?
One of the most useful sources of information, whistleblowers. Sometimes, too, it comes up when, these agencies are doing their audits and something jumps out, something not right here. So when we get involved at that level, that's now when we activate our investigators and
investigation can run for about how long? Like this person or this place is under your microscope for how long?
So here is what's interesting. Now, MOCA has a very high success rate in terms of its prosecutions. When we bring you to court, you've been brought to court. But in order to get to that point, the investigations, they take time. So sometimes the public gets a little bit impatient. You've been investigating this guy for so and so, and we can't hear anything, and you seize these documents, and you raided this building, and then we don't hear anything for a while. That's because good investigative work really depends on good intelligence work. The background work that we do is going to determine how strong a case we can bring. So rather than rushing the case and it goes to court and it gets thrown out because we didn't do our homework, we rather take our time and get it right. In the military, you used to say we never sacrifice accuracy for speed, because you want to ensure that you're putting the best case forward. So it's a little bit difficult to say how long the investigations might run. It really depends on the case. And some of these investigations too are very complicated. Today you're talking about money moving through multiple places, multiple banks, wire transfers, different jurisdictions.
And then money just gone missing.
Exactly.
Where that portion went.
Exactly. And even sometimes, you know, you might be able to speed something along here in Jamaica, but then you realize the money went to another jurisdiction where it's a little bit difficult.
That's a challenge too.
So it can be complicated. But I can tell you is that we have some of the best and brightest investigators in the country. Even in terms of how you join MOCA, how you become a member of the agency. We do look for the best and brightest persons. Obviously, I slip through the cracks, but everybody makes mistakes. But we do look for the best and brightest persons out there. I remember when I was doing my polygraph to join the agency, it was an entire day strung up with all sorts of electrodes. They asked me everything from if I've ever taken money from the cookie jar when I was growing up. It's a very difficult process because the standards are so high.
As it relates to crime and violence, what is the concern?
Crime is always going to be a challenge in this. Wherever you have high unemployment and lack of resources and you know, sprinkling a little corruption in there, you're always going to find that you're going to struggle with crime. But I see where the JCF has reported some very positive statistics in terms of the murder rate. We see where the police they're closing a lot of crimes a lot quicker.
Right.
Yeah, you must give the JCF credit for that. But at the same time, it's a cat and mouse game because as we evolve our techniques, they have also evolved. And what we're seeing now is that criminals are now evolving into cyber, which is the newest frontier, cyber crimes.
What is the hope from MOCA's perspective for us Jamaicans, for this country at large? What is the hope?
I think we need to take back Jamaica and go back to some of our traditional values. I'm very big on integrity, corruption, doing the right thing. If we can start to teach our kids
starts there
early, I really believe that's where it starts. If we can start to teach our kids good values, keep the family unit strong, a holistic approach, that's the first place we're going to have to start. I also believe too that with the breakdown of the family units, perhaps we need to start teaching integrity and doing the right thing in schools. And I'm very happy to see that the government has brought civics back or is bringing civics back. If the family won't teach it, when I was growing up, my grandmother taught me, and if I didn't learn it, I'd get a whipping.
Yeah.
Nowadays,
but we're a different set of grandmothers now. Different set of grandmothers.
It's a different set. So in the absence of that, I believe that perhaps the government, the Ministry of Education in particular, should try to now force feed integrity into the curriculum. And I'm encouraged by that with what I see happening with civics. So the short answer to the question is, I'm coming from an army man, you know, we need to just do more of this. No, I think we need to go back to the drawing board and try to raise our kids right.
Major Jarrett, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you for having me, and congratulations. I really love what you've done.
Thank you, man. Coming from a teacher himself. All right. So you've heard it. There's so much more that we can do as families and so much more we can do for our communities in raising our children. Jamaica can be a better place to live, work, and raise family. I'm Alric Mackenzie. The Alric Show will be back next week.